about phonology. We'll talk about new things in the first class. There are allomorphs in almost all languages, and this is another kind. So can you pick up what's the allomorphs for negation in this language? What are they? What are the allomorphs for negation? Negative as a negative marker. 看左边这一栏跟右边这一栏。What's different between the words in the left column and the right column in terms of their pronunciations? This one has an extra this one has an extra n, and this one has an extra ingma. Yeah, so those three must be all for negation. But do you simply have to remember every single word and what their negation marker is in your brain? You don't need to do that. Can you figure out when you use am, when you use n, and when's the context for using ingma? This is the fun about phonology. This is about finding patterns. Use your phonological knowledge. When it's a bilabial sound, you add when it's followed by a bilabial. And then this is when it's followed by an alveolar, and when it's followed by a velar. I don't have more words from the language, but it would be nice to see what happened when it precedes a labial sound, like labial dental f. If it's a labial dental f initialed word, what's the negative marker you're going to use? Probably eh? Yeah, so this is why we want to study morphology, phonology, and we want to know how it interacts with the morphology of the language. So today and next week, we're going to do some intensive phonological analysis. And the task for you guys is always to find out if they're unique phonemes, they're contrastive, or they're just variations of the same sound. And I want to remind you that last time we talked about minimal pair test. If you pass the test, you have minimal pairs. You're probably your phonemes. And the jargon for it is we too are contrastive, and we're phonemic. We're unique sounds. But there are complex cases that you're going to see a lot because minimal pairs are so easy to find. So we're going to give you some weird situations that sometimes you find these two target sounds in complementary distribution. They just don't occur in the same environment. So if that's the case, they're allophones. But there are other cases that they're just free variations. Sometimes you just say that pronunciation, and sometimes you just use another pronunciation. I'll give you more example of the free variation in the next slide. So this is just a brief review. For complementary distribution, it's the situation in which phones never occur in the same phonetic environment. So for like an aspirated P and aspirated P, do you think these two sounds occur in the same environment? When do you have aspirated P? These are the two environments that you most likely will get aspirated P. If it's word initial or if it's in the stressed syllable, you get that T. But when do you get this unaspirated P? 像 spy, spot. When it's in the same syllable followed by following an S in the same syllable. ST 开头的那些 T 呀、P 呀、K 呀，全部都是 unaspirated. Okay, so we need to start grouping these sounds. That's what we're going to do this today. We need to group the sounds according to their affiliation. We're going to just put them in different classes. Like the flap, we talked about, letter, and button. Those are also in different phonetic environments. So those are allophones too, of the same sound, T. It's just different. They're just different variations. So in your textbook, it talks about complementary distribution. You can use it in any different contexts. The textbook is using the cursive writing. Now, when you write English alphabet, did you notice this difference between you guys and say, native English writers in America? Do you think they use the print? Okay, the two distinctions we give here is to print. When you're signing contracts in the States, usually they say your name and please print. What do you think it means? Super neat. Just like when you print it on a paper. So usually they want, it can be in uppercase or lowercase, 可以大写或小写, but usually when it says print, you better use the capital and make it really, really clear because it's a contract. Now I want you to pay attention to these 4 sets of words. Can you find variations of the same alphabet in different contexts? L, okay. We have, I assume you're referring to this L. Okay, how are they different? When it's in glue and when it's in blue. 你不觉得这个起头，你看这个 this G ends here, right? So this goes up here. And this one, because of the B, it ends here, so the L looks different. When I say different, I mean you need to be like a robot, examining how these are different. You guys all use English, so naturally you think, oh, they're all the same L. But they, morphologically speaking, they do look different, right? So now look at this one. I love this one. Male and will. Are the I's different? Yes. And that's because they have different neighbors. I love this analogy because in sounds, when you're pronouncing words, every single sound would be affected by their neighbors, just like the cursive writing. Okay? So today we're going to see how they affect each other. Is that clear? Love the analogy. And this one throws some people off too. So the C looks different. 这个 C 是从这边过去的，然后这边是从这边过来的。With this, you can be a forensic scientist and help the police solve some writing flaw. Okay. But what about the free variations? How do you say this? O-F-T-E-N. Often? Have you ever heard people say often?
Yes.
Yes. Does that change the meaning of the word? No. Some people just like saying it as often. And how about this? Have you heard people saying, oh, the day, the. These are free. I mean, of course, there are some, you can argue that there is some semantic meaning when you say the dog. It means this is the dog I'm talking about, exactly the dog that I need to take home. But in general, you can switch the pronunciation of these two without changing the actual meaning, which is a definite article of the word. Okay, so these free variations happens. Like, can you think of other examples? Oh, tomato and tomato, yeah. It's quite classic. Tomato, tomato, tomorrow. I can't remember how. And potato is the same thing. Some people say, you say potato, I say potato. Yeah, it's actually a song. So these are free variations. When we're doing the analysis, all you have to pay attention to these 3 different kind of possible scenarios and decide what are the 2 sounds that we're interested in. Okay, you heard about I, E, U, E, O, right? Yeah, let me tell you, these are 5 columns corresponding to those 5 vowels. And then for each rows, they have the consonants. So it looks like this. So all you have to do is combine it together. Let me do it for you, just for the 2 first rows. A, E. So is it a direct combination of S and E? The S changed into She. Okay. What about the T row? It was supposed to be T, right? But it changed to chi as the ch as the Africa ch. It should be t. It became t as in tsunami. T. So what happened is it just doesn't follow the supposed pronunciation according to the table. And that's what happened in human language. There are just some rules that they didn't make the rule and make all the Japanese speakers say things this way. It just happened. Okay? And our job as a phonologist or as a language learner, you just have to know those differences. So, and there's one other thing I want to remind you. In the Japanese orthography, the way they write cherry flower is, how do you spell cherry flowers in Japanese romanization? Spelling. S-A-K-U-R-A. So most of my American students will pronounce it as sakura. Yes, but when in fact it's more like sakura. It's kind of a sound in between, but it just need to remind you when you read their orthography. Just keep in mind that most of the R cases are actually pronounced as L, and that verified the problem set we did last time. I think these two sounds are not phonemic in the language. They are free variations. You can say sakura or sakura. I bet a Japanese speaker will understand you meant that flower. Okay, those are free variations. Okay, so that's just an example of a language that's nearby. Let's do some of this. That's a little bit further away. So I'm interested in these following 4 sounds. Do you guys still remember the first one? No, the first one is not a stop. It's a fricative. It's a velar fricative. Add a schwa after it. Then you can pronounce it better. How about velar stop? Good. How about palatal stop? Block the air in the area of palate, your hot palate. Usually I do ka 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 and then move your tongue forward. 你们还记得 palate is in front of your velum. Ka ka ka. Okay, try this one. This one we didn't introduce. It's a C with the hook to the left. Now, it's your job to figure out whether they're separate phonemes or allophones of the same phoneme. Can you guys find minimal pairs among all these 16 words? Yeah, find a paper and write down the numbers that you think are in pairs. 好了吗? Are we good? 答案要揭晓咯。这样对吗？哎，哪一个不对？7跟8是不是？不是吗？7跟8是不是 ？Correct. 7跟8 7 and 8. They differ in 2 sounds, so they're not minimal pairs. I did this on purpose just to trick you. I'm sorry. And which one is wrong too? 14 and 15. Oh, that's so off. Silly me. Okay, so actually 8 and 9. Are also minimal pairs. 8跟9也是，可是我画不起来。Sorry, I should have moved it. I left it there on purpose. So using this minimal pair, you know K and X are minimal pairs. They are contrastive. And then for using this case and number 8 and 9, you can establish. But the problem is, so we know that K and X are minimal pairs. And then these 2 are minimal pairs, have minimal pairs. What about the rest? So we know these are contrastive. K and S are contrastive. But Is K and these? Oh, how about K and K? Are these two contrastive or are these two contrastive? Can you find evidence that this pair and this pairs are actually contrastive phonemes? Can you, based on this data? 根据这个，你可以说我刚刚说的这两个是 phonemes 吗？不行 because you don't have minimal pairs. So we're going to do a further investigation. 让我们继续看下去。So when this happens, all you have to do is list the environment for these sounds to happen. Right now, I'm giving you a shortcut. Well, let's focus on the vowels. You realize that, so you list the environment for these four sounds, and then you realize, hey, for this stop, for this velar stop, it occurred before these four R. Okay, before these three vowels and R. And this occurred before these three vowels and R. And this is a trio. But these two sounds, this is also a stop. It only occurred before E and A. Now let's look at all those stops together. 这个也是 stop, 这个也是 stop. Do you think they are in complementary distribution? Are they in complementary distribution? Do they never occur in the same phonetic environment? Yes or no? Yes. Now, and then let's think about it. A velar stop occurred before this. But a palatal stop occurs when it precedes front vowels. Do you think it's natural for a velar stop to change into a palatal stop when you're pronouncing a front vowel after it? 用你的舌头好好想一想。I mean, 好好想一想你的舌头是怎么运作的。You're doing ka, ko, ku, but when you, it looks like when you're pronouncing ki, it becomes more fronted. Ki. It kind of makes sense, eh? Because you're going to do a front vowel. And by the definition of front vowel, it's the front, your tongue position moves to the front. So it drags the back of your tongue with it. 你的舌头就这么长嘛，除非你要把它伸长去发那个音，不然的话，你本来是 K 音，你要发 K 的时候，你的 K 可能会往前移一点点 ，makes it turns it into a palatal stop. And the same thing can happen if you're pronouncing a velar fricative. A velar fricative, not alveolar fricative. This is a velar fricative. And when you pronounce it before E and A, which are front vowels, it's very likely that you change the place of articulation just to the front to the velum area. Okay, so we conclude that it's very possible that these two are allophones of the same phoneme. And these two are allophones of the same phoneme because you can predict when you're going to get k and when you're get ke. Ke, ke, ke. I do a ke, k and k. K, 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 and this is another practice. I think this is Turkish. And in the first column, you get the singular word. This dal means branch. And then, can you pronounce this? This is an IPA. G, and how do you pronounce this? Gül, 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 gül. Yeah. So now, if you want to pluralize the word, in English you add your allomorphs. But in Turkish, there are actually two. I'm telling you this right now. Do you know? Did you see there are actually two morphemes you can add to the singular to make it a plural? They are lar, there. Okay? Now, can you predict, can you tell me when you get lar and when would you get ler? When you're doing phonological analysis, it's very helpful for you to write down the environment of the target. So when would you ever get lar? You do it after. So it depends on the root. If the root has a front vowel, you get ler. And if it has a back vowel, you get lar. Why do you think that's the case? It's a very special phenomenon that's called vowel harmony. They like their vowels. In this case, they like their vowels to be harmonic to each other. So if the root has a front vowel, you add the ler allomorph. And if it has a back vowel, you add an allomorph that has the same frontness to it. Okay, it's called vowel harmony. So this is the rule, what we call assimilation. To assimilate means to become more like something. And in the context of phonology, assimilation means that you make your neighboring segments more similar. More similar by copying or spreading its features. The homoorganic nasalization, homoorganic we mentioned earlier, when the two sounds, maybe they started with different place of articulation, but eventually you change the neighboring sound, you spread, you affected your neighbor by spreading, giving your neighbors one of your features. And in this case, which we're going to discuss, it's called homoorganic nasalization. Let me just, why don't we just do it and then you will know what I mean. So try pronouncing, compare incomplete and intolerable. Now pronounce intolerable and incomplete.
Intolerable, incomplete.
I want you to focus on your second segment. When you do intolerable and compare to incomplete, do you actually use an in this case? Do you pronounce when you say incomplete, okay, when you say intolerable, in the second segment, in the second sound, was your tongue tip touching the alveolar ridge? 有吗？在 intolerable 里头 在 n 那个 segment 的时候 intolerable, was it touching? Oh, it was very touching. Yes. Intolerable. How about incomplete? Was the tip touching the alveolar ridge? 没有哎。然后很无能的 incompetent. Your tongue tip, I want to bet you 100 Taiwanese dollars. It's not touching your alveolar ridge. Why is it happening? Why is it the case? You have a k sound right after the n, and it's spreading the place of articulation to make that nasal the same organ, the same place of articulation. Okay, this happens a lot in English, nasal sounds in English. So although we do spell them like in instead of ik, it's pronounced, and when you're pronouncing it, it's ng. That's what phoneticians cares about. We want to know exactly how you actually pronounce the sound. How about these guys? Impossible. Imbalance. Because these are actually the same underlying morpheme. 这些都是代表 negative 的 morpheme. 是 I, 然后有一个 N, 然后这个 N, so it starts with the IN, but it depends on what's the initial sound of the word that you're trying to negate. You actually change the pronunciation. And some of the pronunciations are represented in the orthography, but some are not. Okay? So this is for the cases of the homogenic nasals. Can you try saying these phrases? So I want you to actually pay attention to those sounds you're actually pronouncing. When you're talking, when we're reading it very quickly, just read my lips. I can bake. I can bake. I didn't do I can bake. It's not efficient. You do I can bake. I can bake. So it becomes I can bake. I can play. I can go. I can go. I can go. Okay, so assimilations is everywhere. Now, if there is assimilation, there are dissimilation. Sometimes you're trying, if you like your neighbor, you probably will try to assimilate to it. But in some cases, you just absolutely hate what your roommate is doing. So you try to be less like her. And this is just going in a different direction. So this is when a segment becomes less similar to its neighboring sound. Anybody found it difficult to pronounce? Fifth. Because they're both fricatives. So it makes it harder to pronounce. We talked about this last time. For stops being together, fricatives being together, it's much harder to produce. So some native speaker actually changed it to fifth and sixth. Changing, because there are two fricatives, harder to pronounce. So changing the last fricative to a stop makes it easier to produce. Okay? Assimilation, dissimilation. You need to remember that. There is something that's it's called German devoicing. In German, all the word final voiced obstruents, become voiceless. And that's a very famous rule. It's called final devoicing. So how do you say good day in German? Okay, what does Tag mean? T-A-G, day. But do you actually, I mean, you guys probably are not familiar with the phonological rules, but they don't actually say Tag. They say, according to the German devoicing rule, it's Tag. All the word final voiced obstruents. So obstruents include what? What are obstruents? Do you guys remember? Stop and fricative, yes, and the affricate, of course. So just remember when you're pronouncing German and Dutch, it's the same case. 荷兰话也是. They have this final devoicing, but it's not all consonants. It only applies to voiced obstruents. Okay? So gradually we're going to learn more phonological rules in different languages. Before we introduce more phonological rules, there's a new concept that we need to discuss. It's called distinctive feature. So the definition of distinctive feature is for two sounds to contrast and to contrast or to be phonemic. It means that there must be some difference between them. And these are features. If you want to tell if two sounds are the same or different, there bound to be something that's different between them. Either one of them aspirate and the other one doesn't, or one is voiced and the other is voiceless, or this one is bilabial, that one is alveolar. So there are some features that distinguish the sounds. So the difference between s and z is the feature of voicing. So right now you have to learn how to use binary feature representations. So for the sound, it's plus voice. How about s? In terms of voice, if you use a binary feature, it will become minus voice. 就正跟负而已. Okay, so I'm plus teacher, and you guys are minus teacher. But you can use a different feature is you guys are plus student, I am minus student. So we're in feature, we just use this binary 双向的方式去 represent the feature with the feature or without the feature. So linguists usually describe them as minus rich, plus minus sane. Sane 是什么意思 ？Sane plus minus sane 就是有时候是正常的，有时候是不正常的。Plus minus, okay? Okay, so when a feature distinguishes one phoneme from another, it's a distinctive feature or phonemic feature. Okay, if this feature separates two sounds and make these two sounds phonemic, we call those features distinctive features. Can you find a piece of paper and actually label all this? Is ba a stop? Is ba a stop? Yes, and then you use plus. Is ma a stop? We talk about the definition of stop is you block the air in your mouth. Okay, so in a broad generalization, you can treat ma as a stop. But later, when we distinguish ma and ba, we can use the nasal features to distinguish them. So why don't you skip this stop row and then finish all this? Can you do a plus and minus in terms of voice, labial, alveolar, velar, and nasal to all these sounds here? Just mark plus or minus. I'm sorry, this should be a real g. Is ba a plus labial or minus labial? Ba? Plus? Yes. It's a minus velar. In intro, I taught you guys the stop test. Do you guys know the stop test? We did stop test in intro. So before you utter the sound, hold your breath. So let's do the. Pretend you're about to say the, but hold it right there. And see if you can let the air out from your mouth. Hold it right there. I bet you can't. So that's a stop. For voice, are they all voiced? Guys, let's look at the rows. So these are all, by broader generation, they are all stops. Although in general, I just need to remind you, when we're talking about features, we do treat nasals as stop. But when we talk, if we're just talking about, oh, what are the stops in English, you should just give me those oral stops. Okay, 就是 nasal 跟 stops 有时候会这样搞混. Now they're all voiced. Which two are labial? B, m. And these two are alveolar, these two are velar. And these three are nasals. So features, basic steps is really easy. You figure out the feature and then do a plus and minus. Now here's a practice. What's your distinctive feature? Can you think of one feature that distinguishes me and you? Age. Yes, bloody truth. But we can't do plus and minus age. So you need to refine that. For these features, it's binary. 所以你一定要用不是 gradient 的量尺去量. Like you guys will all learn about dead is a 0 or 1. 你不能说 when someone is dead, he's like completely dead. It's not like he's 50% dead. You know, so age, you can do I'm still at that age. How do you change the age feature to a binary? Yeah, you're all adults. We can't use adult. Adult is a subjective opinion in different countries. In America, you can't drink until you're 20. In most states, you can't drink until you're 21. But here, you can drink when you're 18. So they just have slightly different definition. Or you can use 30. All of you are below 30, right? Yeah, we can create a feature that's called 30. So this is the thing. Can you think of your distinctive feature to the rest of us? Have you guys ever thought about your distinctive feature? I know I'm plus PhD. I'm sorry. Yes. And above 40. Great. Can you think of your distinctive feature? If you have one distinctive feature or more, the more you have, the better chance you get a job that's uniquely, that would just fit you. Did mention distinctive features in American Sign Language. So for people in my intro class, you learn a little bit of sign language. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more. So sign language is not manifested using sounds. It's all gestures. So when we think of sounds, you guys should know by now, we can tell by whether it's voiced, where is your place of articulation, what's the manner of articulation, if it's a vowel, what's the height, what's the part of tongue that's involved, whether it's rounded or unrounded. But none of those can apply to. So in sign language, none of those works. So what do we use? So sometimes the location and the movement and the hand shapes are distinctive features. I'll give you an example of movement. In Taiwanese Sign Language, I don't speak American Sign Language, so I'll give you examples from Taiwanese Sign Language. Those two are not mutually intelligible. In the world of sign language, it's like spoken language. There is an international sign language, but in general, all the sign languages used in different countries are not mutually intelligible. They have to learn the international sign language to communicate to each other. So in Taiwan sign language, if you want to say could you, is 会, and this is 不会. So what's the distinctive feature between these two movements? Direction. And then, so this means speed up. Speed up. If I do this, and then do, do they mean different things? Well, it's like an adverb embedded in your movement. When you do it faster, it means faster. I'm signing faster. And then in American Sign Language, there's an example showing people fishing. I think this is fishing. But there are two different words. This means this is, and this is. Their facial parts are also part of the the words. So this means I'm just fishing. This means I'm actually happily fishing. and then I think there's a story about when one of a celebrity died, a teacher from a deaf school overheard someone saying heard. Heard someone saying, oh, did I tell you this? Yeah. So I think the signer was saying that he's dying. Like this means like turning in your grave. So just like if you do it slowly, it's dying. But if you do it like this, it's dead. But the viewer didn't catch the pace, and then went tell people that, oh, that person is dead. And then I think Washington Post actually got this and then post a news about the death of that celebrity, which is totally untrue. Did I show you how to sign brothers? You have to learn this. It's just so frowned upon. When you sign younger brother. No, over here. You use your finger, middle finger. And then you do 弟弟. And then sisters are 姐姐是这样子，姐姐妹妹 Yeah. 要不要 ？This is your waist, right? 要的那个中文叫腰，对不对？ They have homophones. Sometimes they use homophones. So this is 要不要？知道。This is good. 知道 understand. So next time when I explain a concept, I might say, this is a question marker 吗 ？Benny 知道吗？知道。OK， 会不会？会。OK。然后这是可以。OK。明天去看电影吗？电视little TV and then movies bigger screen. and in Chinese sign language, did I show you this character? 回. Sometimes they sign characters by using part of your bodies. So this is a little mouth, right? And you enclose it with a bigger mouth. So this is return 回小口大口回 Yeah. So that's the unique part of Chinese of sign language used in Chinese language context. But I just want to remind you that the sign language used in Taiwan is mostly derived from Japanese sign language. So the sign language users in Taiwan actually learn the sign language just like they're learning a different language. The grammar is completely different. So they have a lot of problem learning Chinese because they don't have the auditory input. You see, when we were growing up, even before you start talking, your parents were talking to you. So you pick up the grammar, you pick up the syntax and phonology, but they don't have that. So it's harder for them to read newspapers and to write in Chinese. Just want to remind you. Okay, so so according to these features, we can actually group sounds to their natural classes. So you guys can be grouped to natural classes too. So depends on your features, we can group. So you can group all the voiced obstruents together. Do you think it makes sense to group all the voiced obstruents together? Does it make sense in German? I'm talking about grouping them together. Now I'm grouping, do you think in German phonology, grouping voiced obstruents together, would that make sense? All the sounds in the natural class behave similarly. When I talk about voiced obstruents in German, they behave similarly. So it makes sense to cluster them together to form a natural class. So these classes, groups, they make sense. It's not just randomly grouping them together. So like syllabic, what are the plus syllabic consonants in English? Syllabic, what consonants could be syllabic? This could be an exam question when you teach English in high school in the future. Rachel, all become syllabic. And then better, the R, better. That R is by itself a syllable, and the nucleus of it is R. Now sonorant. We'll go by these features, and maybe we can. The natural classes that you definitely have to remember for this class. Okay, so bear with me. First of all, we need to know what's consonantal and what not. Most of the consonants are consonantal. The only tricky cases are the wa and ya, which are glides. They are defined as minus consonantal. Yeah, some of these features, it's based on some of their phonological features. So just bear with me that in most of the feature specification, we do group glides and vowel as minus consonantal. If they're minus consonantal, they're plus vowel. Okay? Now, sonorant. Sonorant is easy. If we have 40 sounds and find out the obstruents, the rest are sonorant. Obstruent and sonorant are like enemies of each other. You're either obstruent or a sonorant. Sonorant. It means very loud. So I'll give you sounds, and you tell me if they're obstruents or sonorants. Okay, pa, obstruent, na, sonorant. So obstruents are stops, fricatives, and affricate. 再说一次 obstruent 就是 stops, fricative 跟 affricate， 然后其他的都是 sonorant。然后这些 sonorant 呢都很大声。If I pronounce s and which one is louder? L sound. So your liquid, your glide, your nasal, those are all sonorant. Okay, let's try again. Ra, 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 sonorant, good. And wa, plus sonorant. And I'm out of sounds already, right? Ya, ya, ya. Yeah, they are sonorant. So do you see that for nasals, liquids, glide, and vowels, they are very loud. They are sonorants. Okay, so these tend to be grouped together. Syllabic. For nasals, velar nasal is not syllabic in American English. Velar nasal 在 American English 里头，我们只有谈到 m 跟 n are syllabic. Velar nasal is not syllabic. That's why this is showing plus and minus. And then liquid, I don't understand why this is liquid. The liquids in American English are both syllabic. You can have the syllabic R and syllabic L. I'll revise this. I don't agree with this. And glide, can glide be syllabic? This is one of your question in your multiple choice question. Glides cannot be syllabic. You don't find glides to be syllabic in English. And then nasals are minus obstruents. They are plus nasals. And nasal and liquid are different. And they're not glides. And we'll go into detail of this one next time. But that one, it looks terrible. But it's all about the features we know. If it's, do you think vowels are plus voice or minus voice? Plus voice. They're all voice, unless there are some strange cases. And if they're high, they are plus. They're plus. High vowels has high as plus. And then let's look at rounded. Ding, ding. So the all sound is rounded. You have some rounded sounds here. This is rounded, 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 and the rest are unrounded. Okay? So it looks crazy, but it's just binary. You just have, if you know it's a sonorant, it's plus sonorant. Otherwise, minus sonorant. Okay? Okay. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I'll give you your exams, and we'll talk about it. So next week, we're going to seriously learn about how to write phonological rules. So in the Greek case, we saw in the first hour, it's a rule, if you want to describe it by words, it's palatalize your velar consonant. Palatalize. Lies means to make it become what, right? So this is palatalization. Palatalize velar consonant before front vowels. And if you want to write it, it's pretty easy. You just write plus velar. So this means all the velar sounds turns into plus palatal sounds in the environment of. And this is where your target sound should be. This is where your C or your K is. this is before, so this means it's position 1 and position 2. So when it's before a minus back, if it's minus back, it's plus front. You can use plus front, but more people in phonology use minus back. So with this rule, you can explain all the cases we saw in the first hour in Greek. Isn't that beautiful? You can use one rule to describe the phonological condition. That's what phonologists do, to find the most beautiful rule to describe a phenomenon that we observe in certain languages. Okay? Next week, I'm going to give you a lot of problem sets so you can actually do the analysis.